Hello, welcome everybody. As promised, I'm going to go through some little tips and tools around mindful eating. So this is for everybody, but mainly it's focused for practitioners, because lots of practitioners, especially from the naturopathic community, find that they've given their clients all the tools and tips around losing weight or actually just sustaining or reducing weight, but actually the client can't seem to lose weight. Now, why might that be? Now, a lot of the time, often people are following a protocol whereby they're doing everything that they should be, but actually their weight isn't changing. So one of the things that's really important to kind of focus on here is understanding the difference and the different types of hunger. Now, I was lucky enough to teach a class on this on Sunday in Dublin, and some of the students, we didn't get a chance to finish it. So this is an opportunity for me to go over those important points with those lovely students that might have joined. But for the rest of you, the first thing I want to start with to understand is that when you're helping people from a weight loss point of view, particularly for obesity, are they eating from stomach hunger or mouth hunger? So stomach hunger is when your stomach physically starts to rumble. So it's a physical sensation that strikes kind of below the neck and you can feel it in your stomach. And you are actually getting a real rumbling in your tummy and desire to eat. The other element to it is that when you're really hungry from a stomach hunger point of view, you're much more open to alternative choices in food. So when you offer a child food, for example, and you'll say, would you like this? Would you like that? They're no. It's because actually they're not really physically hungry. There's a sensation that they want to consume a certain type of food. So when you're really physically hungry, then you're much more open to whatever is available to you. So from a client point of view, if you're trying to help someone, one of the really great things that you can do is get them to complete a food diary. And on the food diary, you put a little S or a little M next to the food that they've eaten. So is it stomach hunger or is it mouth hunger? So mouth hunger is very much around the sensation, the crunch of the food, the texture, how that food makes you feel, a real desire to eat, possibly from an emotional point of view, rather than a physical hunger where you're actually getting a pain because actually you're really desperate for food and your tummy's really rumbling. So this idea about mindless eating comes from looking at someone's food diary and go, are they always eating from mouth hunger? Or are they eating from stomach hunger? Now, in my experience, most people don't eat from stomach hunger. I think if we're all really honest and we look at our food diaries, actually probably stomach hunger is something that happens really infrequently. The rest of the time, our drivers and our cues to eat are things like, well, actually it's 12 o'clock, so I need to eat now because I won't have a break till later. Or you smell something delicious and that makes you want to eat. Or you've done an exercise session and therefore you want to eat. So first of all is look at that stomach and mouth hunger connection. What's driving you to eat? If you're finding that someone isn't losing weight and they're eating purely from mouth hunger, so the texture, the taste of something, you need to explore this idea about mindless eating. So mindless eating is consuming food just because it's there, right? So many people will admit to eating mindlessly some of the time, but if you're eating mindlessly a lot of the time, then potentially that's going to be disaster from a weight gain or a weight loss point of view. So as practitioners, what we want to do is really identify, how much of the time is our client eating from a mindless point of view where they're not actually giving it much thought. And actually eating is a secondary activity to something else. Now, the most common form of mindless eating is watching the TV while you're eating. So we have a pairing of activity whereby some people, immediately they get that food prepared, they sit in front of the TV and they want to watch something while they're eating. Now, you see it with children and with babies that, in order to get them to eat the food that they've been the mum's prepared, they put the TV on, they put Peppa Pig on, or whatever the TV program is, so that the child isn't really focusing on the food, they're focusing much more on the TV program, and that enables the mum to pop the food in while they're not watching. So a great idea when you've got a toddler that won't eat, but actually it sets up really negative patterns for eating in adulthood. Now, this isn't about blame for parents, that we all do what we need to do or try to do to get that child to eat, but actually from a bigger picture, if you always learn to eat while distracted, it means that you're not really available and watching actually what you're eating. So this secondary activity means that food is just the by the way. You're on your phone. So mostly people these days are on their phones or their tablets while they're eating. And therefore they don't recognise those satiety signals to identify that you're full. So this idea, which may sound really simplistic, but if you eat when you're hungry, then you can stop when you're full, right? If you eat when you're hungry, you can stop when you're full. But if you're eating when you're not hungry and that you're distracted, you'll just continue to keep eating. And on that basis, then you really won't know when to stop. And this is a really important factor when you're trying to help someone with obesity that are not losing weight. So there's a degree of resistance around their weight loss. So this idea that we're not recognising when we're hungry and then we're not recognising when we're full. So the first thing we want to do is get our clients to not do anything apart from focus on the food when they're eating. So no phones, no tablets, no TV. Can mean that someone can recognise that they're full much quicker than if they're distracted by something on Instagram or something on the TV. Now, there's some very interesting research done by a gentleman called Rhian, I can never say his name, and he found that we override these satiety signals for a variety of reasons. So one of the reasons is distraction, so watching TV on the phone, but the other one is often package sizes. So, when we stock up at discount stores and we buy much bigger packages of foods because it's cheaper, we tend to eat 48% more when we have bigger packages. I find that really alarming, that almost half as much, again, you're eating just because it's a massive package. Now, he found that, when you give someone a bucket of popcorn and it's continually filling, so people don't really know when they finish the package, that again, they eat almost 100% more when they're eating popcorn that's self-filling. So we're not very good while distracted at getting the cues that we've eaten enough. We'll just keep eating and eating and eating until the pot's empty. And if that pot continues to refill, guess what happens? We continue to keep eating. So there's the first issue. Are you eating packaging or buying foods that are much bigger than actually the portion that you need? Because that doesn't help someone that is able to or not able to stop eating. The kind of second thing is that, we become mindless when we're eating, and we're eating off much bigger plates. So plate size and shape, the bigger the plate, the more you fill it. And so psychologically, as kids, we're taught to finish our plate. So if you've had those overriding signals as a child, that means that you will continue to eat until that plate is empty, right? But if that plate is twice as big as what you're normally used to, suddenly you're consuming double the calories, again, whilst distracted. And also we know that accessibility of food is an important factor. So if you've got open access containers, meaning that you've got a massive thing of popcorn or 100 grams of nuts and seeds, for example, you'll just keep continuously snacking and not really be aware of actually how much you've eaten. Particularly, we know that when we're watching the TV and we're watching a sad movie, for example, we'll eat twice as much if we're watching something sad. So we know that that elicits more desire to comfort through food when we're watching something sad. When we're watching something happy, we'll eat a little bit more, but not as much as if it's a sad movie. So what's your client watching while they're eating? Are they watching sad stuff that's coming up on Facebook or Instagram? Or are they watching the kind of TV? Or, are they just literally being absorbed by kind of sad material, if you like, on the TV. So these are factors that if you don't really know what someone is doing in their eating environment, you can't really necessarily help them to lose weight. And it could actually be the reason why they're not losing weight. We also know that how you prepare your food, which also comes under the mindless eating banner, is really important. So if you plate your food up in the kitchen, you'll eat 14% less than if you serve yourself at the table. Now, if you serve yourself at the table and take a smaller portion, thinking that you've got space to go back for seconds, you'll still eat 30% more than if you were serving yourself in the kitchen. So the kind of tip is, how are they being fed? Who's giving them those portions? Are they doing it themselves, or are they self-serving at the table? So self-serving at the table is disaster from a weight loss point of view, and meals need to be plated up in the kitchen. The other thing which I find really staggering is the presence of other people when you're eating. So if you eat with one friend, you'll eat about 35% more. So if you're going out for dinner with a work colleague or a partner, you'll definitely eat 35% more. Now, this is a low estimation in my opinion, but the staggering thing is if you're eating with a group of 7 or more, then they reckon that you'll eat 96% more calories and food than you would do if you were eating alone, without the TV or out any distractions on. So if your client is eating out quite a lot, then actually they might be having a Caesar salad or something that on the surface is really healthy, but too much of something means more calories, and therefore they're not likely to lose weight. So 96% more consumed if you're eating with 6 or more people. So if you regularly go out to lunch with your work colleagues, then you can guarantee that that meal is going to be much denser than if you were eating alone at home. Now, I'm not suggesting or promoting that people should sit and eat alone, but sometimes when you have people that just won't lose weight, or bear in mind. Now, some of the other things is that the longer you sit at the table and the more food is available, the longer you are to eat. So staying at the table long after you finished eating means that very often you'll eat more calories. So the other element to it is the psychology, although this is a really short session and impossible to go through everything, but we've got this idea which is called the boundary theory, and we call it the kind of what the hell effect, where if someone has an idea in their mind about what they should be eating, and then they breach that, you know, if they have one biscuit when they hadn't planned to, that's called the what the hell effect, or the kind of boundary theory, where they think, bugger it, I'm going to have the whole packet just because I've had one, and I'll start again tomorrow. So it's important to talk about relapse strategies. So if you have one food that you weren't planning to have, that actually it doesn't mean that the whole thing has gone out the window. It's about getting back on track quite quickly and realising that actually one biscuit really isn't that damaging, but a whole pack of biscuits actually can be. So it's the thought process behind what you're eating is really important to kind of help someone to stay on track. So in summary, what we're saying is that sometimes it's not about what we're eating, it's about the way that we're eating it and the environment that we're in when we're eating it that can really determine sustained weight loss. And also that idea about trying to be perfect. So trying to have the perfect meal. And if you stray from that just by, the smallest amount, it means that people completely collapse and fall off track. So having a relapse strategy is really important. Now, also remember that this kind of idea about mindless eating can span to lots of different arenas in the way that we eat. So not only are we eating when we're distracted, we're eating what we think we should be eating rather than what actually maybe we want to eat. So we know that when we give people, we give them a bucket of Smarties, for example, watching a movie, and when we tell them that all the blue Smarties have no calories in, and all the other coloured Smarties have got normal amounts of calories in, we find that individuals will eat 5 times more Smarties when they're blue coloured and thought to be lower calorie than other Smarties which are thought to be normal calories. So the kind of calorie game the weight loss game, the diet food isn't always that helpful for people that are trying to lose weight, because often they will overeat on those foods. So just some kind of little tips really to help you with your protocols, because I think it's an area that many people struggle with as practitioners, trying to understand why people are not kind of losing weight on their protocol. So remember, portion sizes are really important. Looking at the size of the plate that they're eating from, the way that they're eating, are they distracted? And that simple tip of eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full, and whether it's actually stomach hunger or mouth hunger that's actually driving someone to eat, whether they're eating from an emotional point of view, because they're bored, because it's lunchtime, can all be factors that if you're eating when you're not hungry, then you don't know when you're full, and you'll kind of continue to keep eating. So listen, I hope that's been helpful. Next week we're going back to look at menopause and skin health in menopause, but also some of the genetic influences we're doing in a couple of weeks on how that affects the way our body responds to estrogen, particularly through weight distribution and changes, and of course through menopause. So thank you, and hopefully that was helpful for you lovely Dublin students I didn't get to finish talking to on Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.